Hello, good evening. I am Ajit Jha, the editor of the Public Global and the CEO of Power Pixar. And today I'm going to continue my podcast on Bihar, since, as I told you yesterday in my previous podcast, that I was traveling through Bihar. So let me continue with that. Let's call it the Bihar Podcast 2. And today I'll try and focus on Patna because just 2 days ago I have traveled all the way from North Bihar, Madhubani to Patna. Now let me start with this journey. Normally, it's about 200 kilometers from, let's say, Madhubani to Patna. In fact, a little less back from the place I began, which is my village back in called Koilak in Madhubani. It's about 200 kilometers. Now, of course, at one time, when I was the editor of Times of India Patna, at that time the road used to be a straight road all the way up to my village from Patna, and it passed the cities of Muzaffarpur, the big city, Vaishali first. Well, from Patna you cross the Ganges, Vaishali, Muzaffarpur, Darbhanga, Madhubani. That was the route. There was an alternative route via Samastipur, which you could take from Vaishali. Nowadays, of course, there are more options. And the reason being, there are shorter options. From Muzaffarpur to Patna, basically just one option. But from Muzaffarpur to Madhubani, there are at least after Darbhanga, there are two or three options. But largely, it's about 200 kilometers. Now, those days, and that was when the RJD was ruling Bihar. I was the editor of Times of India Patna between 98 to 2000. It would take roughly about 8 hours because the roads were quite bad at that time, narrow road, a single road. Now you have more roads, you have more options. Yet, let me tell you my story. I started from actually a little beyond, I was still in Madhubani, but at the border of uh, Madhubani and Supol, a place called Ghongadia. And from there, that's the place in between Ghongadia and the district headquarters of Madhubani. Prime Minister Narendra Modi had been giving his lecture on the 24th, where he spoke about the various development schemes. So I started my journey from Ghongadia. I came all the way to Madhubani, to my village in Koilak. And from there, I drove all the way to Patna. As I said, a little bit more than, let's say, 200 kilometers, about 220 to 230 kilometers. Now, I started at 5 in the morning. Everyone tells you that in normal times, it should not take more than 4 hours because apparently the roads have developed. There are better roads, broader roads, highways. Yes, part of it is true. But the truth is, I started about 5 in the morning, and when did I reach Patna? Around 3 in the afternoon. Now just calculate the number of hours from 5 to 12, 7 hours, and plus 3, 10 hours. It took me 10 hours to come from Ghongadia to Madhubani via Darbhanga. Actually, if you want to go into details, via Sakri Pandaul, Darbhanga, Muzaffarpur. Now, this stretch from Ghongadia, Madhubani, Ghongadia is part of Madhubani district, took less time, let's say about 2.5 hours or so, maybe 3 hours at the most. I stopped once to take gas, to take a sort of a diesel for my car. And by the way, I was driving a very good car, Pajero, Mitsubishi's Pajero. So it was driving very well. But from Muzaffarpur to Patna, which normally should not take 2 hours, it took literally 7 to 8 hours. And the reason? The jams on the road. Muzaffarpur is, for those who don't know Bihar very well, is probably the second largest commercial city of Patna. And that road is just jammed full of trucks and full of other vehicles. And each time you are told a new road is coming up, and you go to that new road, and that is equally bad. So it's quite pathetic, the situation between Muzaffarpur and Patna. And so Bihar is not facing what I would call the problems of the first stage of development, which is no roads. Now the roads are better compared to, let's say, about the period I was here before 2000. So that's about 25 years ago. The roads are better, but the roads are totally clogged. I talked yesterday about the sand mafia. The interesting story about the sand mafia is that because of the sand mafia and its nefarious activities, several bridges which have been newly built has collapsed in Bihar. I did talk about the sand mafia yesterday, especially from Buxar to Ara to Chhapra, that part of the stretch, which is kind of the kind of Bihar where you enter from Ghazipur. But this is not Bihar, and it's the roads are equally clogged. I mean, it takes hours and hours, and there is no attempt to declog the road. There are no police guys on the road. You will hardly see any traffic police trying to intervene, trying to help out. You're basically left to some civilians. There is a small part where I got stuck for literally hours. I didn't know whether to move left or right, ahead or backwards. Finally, I looked around, and there was a small little street on the side. So I parked I sort of came off the road, parked my car, and there was a car automobile sort of shop there. And I kind of entered that. And, because of the heat reported by my car was 51 degrees centigrade. Maybe the car was reporting more because of the intense sun, but it was certainly nothing below 45, 46. So I entered and sat down, and I talked to this young man, one of the salespersons. It was a Skoda car automobile sort of center which was selling cars. And I started chatting with him, and he told me, sir, this is a daily phenomena. From 5 in the morning to midnight, the entire road is jammed. No one is bothered. So this is what I call the problems of second phase of development, and something that the Nitish government has totally failed in handling. But let me move ahead from there. Let me talk from there. I came to Patna, and let me talk a little bit about Patna. Let me just talk about three big achievements that the Nitish government talks about. One of them is, of course, the road from Digha to Didarganj. This is popularly known as the Marine Drive of Patna, and otherwise it's called the Jayaprakash Narayan Ganga Path. 20.5 kilometers long. In fact, the last stretch has just been from Gaya Ghat to Didarganj, has just been officially inaugurated in April by the Chief Minister himself. Now, think of it for a moment. It's a wonderful idea. It's a beautiful sort of stretch, 20 kilometers from Digha to Didarganj. It faces the Ganges. But Mr. Nitish Kumar has been Chief Minister for almost 20 years, from 2 decades, from 2005 to 2025. In between, for about 1.5 years, he made Mr. Majhi, who's now also part of the NDA, as the Chief Minister. So basically, the longest serving Chief Minister, Nitish Kumar, for 20 years. And how many kilometers has he built? This stretch from Digha to Didarganj, which is being highlighted as one of the top achievements of the Nitish government, 20.5 kilometers, 5 kilometers. So it took him 20 years to build 20 kilometers of road. Now, by what stretch of imagination would that be considered a great achievement? I don't know. I have studied in Los Angeles. I've studied at Oxford in England. There, in 1 year, you built hundreds of kilometers of road. In Patna, you have built a great marine drive, the Jayaprakash Narayan Ganga Path, but it took 20 years for 20.5 kilometers. Of course, someone can point out that this whole project only started the Shilanyas after 2010, around 2013, 2011 to 2014. But the point is, for 20 years, if the marine drive has just been stretched 20 kilometers, then that would be considered sluggish pace of development. Now, let me come to another sort of tall claim of the Nitish government's record of development. The Patna Medical College Hospital, PMCH, at one time it was called the Prince of Wales Medical College Hospital, one of the top medical colleges inside Bihar, perhaps competing with the Darbhanga Medical College. Now, what is the big claim that they are making? They are claiming that they are going to build the second largest medical college in the entire world, the second largest medical college hospital with the number of beds. About the ambitious target is 5,462 bed hospital. There will be 250 MBBS seats and about 200 postgraduate seats. This is supposed to be the state of the art medical facility. The largest one, by the way, is in China. And even that, the largest one, which is in China, which is about 7,000 bed, reports came out after it was built that it is simply the number of beds they are counting, but the beds are even lying, in the corridors and things of that sort. So if we end up becoming like that, then that won't be considered a great hospital. What about the medical facilities? A few more medical colleges has started. In fact, I personally have visited the Pawapuri Medical College along with Nitish Kumar. I've seen the building, but even there, Chief Minister Nitish Kumar told me that the doctors don't stay. They run away because Pawapuri at one time was this sleepy little Jain town where you had a beautiful temple. It's part of that tourism heritage of Nalanda, Pawapuri, and you can stretch it up to Bodh Gaya, although Bodh Gaya is a little further away. So that is basically the area one would consider it Nitish Kumar's constituency. At one time, he used to fight elections from Bar, and Nalanda is where his bigger focus is. So he has a hospital there. He has a hospital here. Darbhanga Medical College is now, they are claiming, will become an All India Institute of Medical Science, and they have built one more All India Institute of Medical Science in Patna. But again, 20 years. And what do you count? A few hospitals. But the medical conditions inside the hospitals, I can do another entire video on that. But it is quite pathetic. Shortage in general of nurses and doctors. Let me move from here into this Patna University. This Patna University is basically on the banks of the Ganges. Many years ago, I think the year was 1999, I was traveling with Chief Minister Nitish Kumar. At that time, he was not the Chief Minister. Rabdi Devi was the Chief Minister. He was perhaps the leader of the Samta party, and I was traveling in helicopter with him, and we were returning in the evening from North Bihar. There was an election campaign going on, and he insisted that I sort of fly with him. So I said, okay, let me have a look. And I remember him telling me that only the two of us were in the helicopter, and he told me, look, Ajit Ji, dekhiye, Patna has such a beautiful river line of Ganges, and the entire university from Magad Mahila, in fact, from A.N. Sinha Institute, BN College, Medical College, Patna Law College, Science College, probably the most prestigious college of Bihar, and right next to it, At that time, it used to be called the Bihar, the engineering college, where BCE, Bihar College of Engineering, where Nitish Kumar had studied. Now the name has been changed to NIIT, and then the law college. In between, there's a commerce college. The entire, almost all the colleges, with the exception of one, the Patna Women's College, which is situated opposite the Patna High Court, all of them are lined beside the Ganges. But yet, the river front that he promised me in the year 1998 is yet to be completed. And the Ashok Rajpath, which is in front of Patna University, you just cannot drive through it because of the mad rush of traffic and how narrow the road is. Now, a vision that he talked with me back in the year, as I said, that was 1999. So that's like 26 years from now, has yet to be completed. So yes, Nitish Kumar, that popular slogan, Bihar mein bahar hai, Nitishe Kumar hai. Okay, fine. Nitish Kumar is bringing about some development, but look at the pace of development. During these last 25, 26 years, I could quote several parts of the world which has completely transformed. I was in the Middle East, for example, a small country, Qatar, and that used to be at one time, about maybe 25 years ago, a poor little country. And the only, they didn't even have much oil. They had potentially some gas. But today, if you go to Qatar, it has the highest per capita income in the world. The whole country is totally transformed. Of course, it is largely due to LNG, the gas, but the kind of infrastructural development, the international airports. But back in Bihar, it still remains the boondocks of India. Out of the 30 states, on most parameters, Bihar is still at the bottom of the heap, despite some development, as I said, compared to 25 years ago. Bihar remains at the bottom of the heap. So that is what I wanted to talk about. Patna University, which at one time, by the way, I was a student for 4 years there. I did my +2 there after my schooling in West Bengal, because I was born in Darjeeling, grew up in West Asansol. I came and joined Patna Science College. Most of my friends who studied with me, it was a class with, I think, about 4 sections, almost 430 or 40 students. Most of them have done extremely well. There are several of them are in all over the world, abroad, doctors, engineers, top engineers, many of them professors, many of them, some of us journalists, some in other professions. They have moved around the world, but the majority of them, more than 400, has refused to settle down in Bihar. They are all staying outside. And many of them I talk to, because we are a part of a group, and I ask them, why don't you go back to Bihar? Why don't you make it destination Bihar? And they tell me the conditions are still so pathetic. That was the trouble when Nitish Kumar told me why in Pawapuri, the doctors that he had appointed in that hospital would run away outside Pawapuri during weekends. I asked him, is there a decent school in Pawapuri? No. Is there a decent college in Pawapuri for the kids of the doctors? No. Is there even a nice, let's say, a marketing mall in Pawapuri? No. That is the problem. There is a hospital here, there is a road there, there is something else there, but the ecosystem itself has not been developed at all. Let's take the 2 towns of Madhubani and Darbhanga. These 2 towns I know rather well. Darbhanga was part of the Darbhanga Raj. The Darbhanga Maharaja had an airport back in, I think, somewhere around, we are talking about early part of the 1910, 1920s. He had an airport. Now that airport was shut until the Darbhanga airport started barely a few years ago. Now think of that gap. Industries. There were several small industries in North Bihar, largely, sort of sugar-based industries, for example. A few others, paper industries, Ashok paper mills was very famous. All of them either shut down, on the verge of being shut down. There's hardly any industry in North Bihar. Nitish Mishra, who is a young dynamic leader from the Bharatiya Janata Party, who is right now the industry minister of Bihar. I have spoken to him a few times. He is, by the way, the son of Dr. Jagannath Mishra. He's about 52 years old, probably the most potentially brightest guy in the BJP. He talks about various MOUs, and he talks about the private capital now coming into Bihar. But for the last 20 years, the BJP has been in power with JDU. There is no single industry in Bihar. In 20 years, not even 20 industry has been set up. In fact, someone was telling me a joke about it. And what is the joke? The joke is that in order to study economics, you need to study industry and company, industry, sector. What he was saying is that you can study economics of Bihar, but without the I and the C, without the industry and the company. There are no private companies, there are hardly any public companies, and there is certainly no industry in almost the whole of Bihar, except for a refinery in Barauni, except for another small industry somewhere else. But as I said, they haven't even set up 20 major industries in the last 20 years. That is the most sluggish pace of development one can talk about. I will go ahead with this campaign stories that I started yesterday, and I will go around Bihar and tell you various stories from various parts. Why am I talking about all this? Because in October, November, we have an election where the NDA is campaigning about the big development programs they did. As I said, Prime Minister Narendra Modi came and spoke about it in Madhubani on the 24th of April, and he counted several projects. But the truth is, all of them are either in imagination or in the pipeline, or maybe a few or on paper. Nothing has begun seriously in Bihar. Bihar is still waiting to industrialize. Even its agricultural productivity is one of the lowest in the country. Madhya Pradesh, a neighboring state, has massive agricultural productivity, massive agricultural growth. In Bihar, we are talking about, I think, agricultural growth of 2.2 or 2.3%, which is very, very near what we have population growth. Bihar, in fact, has the highest fertility ratio of 3.0. Neighboring UP has about 2.7, 2.8, and the rest of the country closer to 2. The southern states much lower. So Bihar and UP are the laggards in India's trajectory of development. And unless Bihar industrializes, unless Uttar Pradesh industrializes, there is no future for India. And let me point out finally that the demographic dividend that Prime Minister Modi talks about all the time when he lectures is only for the next 15 to 20 years. If in the next 15 to 20 years, India is not able to industrialize rapidly, not sluggishly, as I pointed out, there is no future for India in this sort of a great game and competition for major power growth. China has leaped ahead to 20 trillion. We have barely touching at 4 trillion. Some people, in fact, even suspect that figure. America is at 30 trillion. As I said, the demographic dividend is not automatic advantage unless and until you have a serious education policy, unless and until you produce graduates who can get jobs, unless and until there are jobs, unless and until people don't migrate for education and for jobs outside Bihar, somewhere abroad or in the metros, to the working class from Bihar goes to Tamil Nadu and Kerala and works at pathetic wages. Why do they go there? Because even those pathetic wages are not available in Bihar. If that doesn't happen, there is no future for Bihar. In fact, I would argue, as one of my professors used to say, in Bihar, the state has withered away without a revolution. Thank you very much.